Week 7 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I look to buy this week. The first guy, Cody Bellinger of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So Bellinger once again this season off to a horrible start, and last season was one of the worst seasons I've ever seen from a guy who was an MVP, and then a few years later struggling. Last year hitting 165 with only 10 homers and 36 RBIs, but so far this season a little bit better, but not by much. 5 home runs, 15 RBIs, 19 runs scored, 6 stolen bases though, a 213 average and a 285 on base. So right here, Cody Bellinger, he's a little bit under the weather as well, out of the lineup the last few days with an illness, but he should be back in the lineup by Friday or the weekend. The latest here is Bellinger. So Bellinger, the last couple weeks here, starting to find it a little bit, hitting 233 in the last 2 weeks, but the power still isn't there. Batting average is low, and he's already struck out 52 times in 150 at-bats is Bellinger. So right now, I've seen some leagues owners drop them, even though he's still owned in 90% of leagues. So if somehow he's on your free agent waiver wire, you go out there and pick him up, because this guy's too talented, I think. He won the MVP a few seasons ago, which I don't think is a fluke. And he's in a great lineup where there's not a lot of pressure on him, and he's got a lot of protection, especially batting seventh. So I think Bellinger could turn things around. And we've seen some small signs from him that he could over the last few games. May 18th versus Arizona, 2 for 3 with a run. May 20th at Philly, 1 for 3. May 21st at Philly, 2 for 5 with a run. May 22nd at Philly, 1 for 4 with a stolen base. May 23rd at Washington, 1 for 4 with an RBI, a run, and a stolen base. And then May 25th, before he's been out the last couple games with the illness, 0 for 2 here for Bellinger. So Bellinger, he's got a long swing, I know, but this is a guy that we've seen him do it a few seasons ago and win the MVP here. So maybe a couple days off here could clear his head and he could get things going once again, because he's too talented. And like I mentioned, there's no way he's going to fall that quickly from a great player to a horrible player who could be out of the league in a few seasons. So right now, I would go out there and try to make a deal here for Bellinger before he can maybe turn things around and have a big second half. The next guy's Juan Soto of the Washington Nationals. So Juan Soto, he's considered maybe one of the best players, if not the best player, in all of Major League Baseball. And so far this season, a very underwhelming and uncharacteristic type of season here for Soto. 8 home runs, 14 RBIs, 26 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, 236 averages is way down there for him, and a 379 on base, which is still great considering he's got a 236 average. So right now, this national team, we know they gutted it last trade deadline, and right now it's pretty much Soto, Josh Bell, and Nelson Cruz is the only threats in that Washington National lineup here. But for Soto to hit 236 is just unheard of, and also for Soto to be hitting 182 in the last 2 weeks here is unheard of as well. But his home runs are still at a decent pace with 8 on the season, where he could easily finish still with 25 to 30 homers, but only 14 RBIs is very concerning as well here for Soto. But the thing that is in his favor, only 28 strikeouts and 161 at-bats. His on-base is still high, and the power is still where it could be, because say he has a big week or two here, Soto will have 12, 13 home runs by mid-June, if anything. So right now, well, he's way down there, his stats is Soto. This is a perfect time to buy him on the cheap, because once he gets going, there's no turning back, and his value will be tip-top value. So the last few games here for Soto, May 18th at Miami, 0 for 2 with a stolen base. May 20th at Milwaukee, 1 for 4. May 21st at Milwaukee, 0 for 3. May 22nd at Milwaukee, 1 for 5, 2 RBIs. May 23rd versus the Dodgers, 1 for 3. May 24th versus the Dodgers, 0 for 3 with an RBI. And May 25th versus the Dodgers, 0 for 3. So right here, Soto, his next 7 games, he's got pretty good matchups here where I think he could turn things around. He's got the Rockies coming to town, starting here tonight for a 4-game series. And then he goes to Citi Field at the New York Mets for a 3-game set, where throughout his career, he's been a Met killer as Juan Soto. So Soto here, I definitely could see the turnaround start here this Memorial Day weekend. So right now, if a manager's dangling him, the Soto owner, you go out there and try to make a deal for him, because he's too talented of a player to be held down, even though we don't have great protection in the lineup. And once he gets going, he's going to be a monster once again this season. The next guy I look to buy low here is Marcus Semien of the Texas Rangers. So this one's one of the most puzzling things I've ever seen from one season to another in stats-wise and fantasy baseball-wise. On the season here for Semien, no home runs, 10 RBIs, 14 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, a 185 average, and a 242 on base. So this is ridiculous now at this point with Semien. The Rangers gave him a 7-year contract. In year one already, this guy looks finished, but I don't think he's finished. It's just, I don't know, maybe the pressure living up to the contract and obviously not playing with a team in Toronto with 4 or 5 great hitters in that lineup with Semien. Last season, he had a monster year, 45 home runs and 102 RBIs, but it's very hard to believe he's got no home runs. Even if he was hitting 185 with 7 or 8 homers, that could be justifiable, but right now it's ridiculous 185 for Semien with the no homers on the season. But the only thing that looks a little bit promising, only 31 strikeouts in 162 at-bats. He's putting the ball in play, and maybe he's going to start finding the power stroke, the holes for hits, because over the last couple weeks here, he actually has hit 234 in the last 2 weeks here, Semien, but he's still way below the Mendoza line. So the last few games here for him, May 18th, versus the Angels, 3 for 5. May 19th at Houston, 1 for 4. May 20th at Houston, 1 for 3 with a rib. May 21st at Houston, 1 for 4. May 22nd at Houston, 1 for 4. May 24th at the Angels, 0 for 4. May 25th at the Angels, 2 for 4 with a run, an RBI, and a stolen base. So Semien, he's still batting first or second in this Texas Ranger lineup. And there's no way this guy is going to be this poor all season. So right now, his value is bottom of the barrel, and I don't think you got to give up anything of importance to have him on your team. And he still qualifies at second and short, which is still weak positions in fantasy baseball. So if you see Semien on your trade block, I would lowball the offer big time, and I away with it, especially with no home runs and especially with a 185 average. The next hitter I look to buy this week here, Castellanos to the Philadelphia Phillies. So the Phillies, on paper, they got a great lineup with a lot of guys who can hit 30-plus home runs. But so far this season, it just hasn't come to fruition. Even though I know we're only 45 games in on the season here for Castellanos. 5 home runs, 22 RBIs, 20 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 248 average, and a 313 on base. So the first month of the season, he was off to a good start, but the last month here hitting 206, and the last 2 weeks here hitting 145. But Castellanos, another guy who last season 34 and 100 with a 309 average. The average, I could see him only finishing 250, 260, but the power, especially in a bandbox like Philly, should go up. And he's another guy who's got some decent matchups coming up here in the next few series. He's got the Mets coming up. Pitching staff's been in disarray with the injuries over the last week here. And then he's got the Giants, whose pitching's hit or miss. So I think he could get hot as well entering this Memorial Day weekend. And he's too good of a hitter. And like I mentioned, he's in a good lineup with a lot of good hitters where the numbers definitely should be better for him. Hoskins, Schwarber, and Realmuto, all 4 of those guys are struggling, but they're too good to be bottled down this long. So the last few games here for Castellanos, May 18th versus the Padres, 0 for 3. May 19th versus the Padres, 0 for 4. May 20th versus the Dodgers, 0 for 4. May 21st versus the Dodgers, 0 for 3 with a run. May 22nd versus the Dodgers, 2 for 4 with a run. May 23rd at Atlanta, 0 for 5. May 24th at Atlanta, 1 for 5. And May 25th at Atlanta, 0 for 4 with an RBI. So right here, a lot of 0-4s we've seen over the last week here for Castellanos. And if he just gets in rhythm and starts getting a few hits here and there, the average will bump up and the power will come. He's still on pace for 20, 25 home runs. But if he gets hot in a month, he easily could hit that 30 home run mark once again. So I would go out there and get him while he's been pretty much doing nothing over the last month of the season. He has Castellanos, because he's a player, when he gets hot, he could carry a fantasy team for a few weeks. And the fifth and final hit I look to buy this week's Yoan Moncada of the Chicago White Sox. And Moncada, former top prospect in all of Major League Baseball 4 or 5 seasons ago when he was in the Boston Red Sox system. And so far this season, he's been lost. I know it's only been 59 at-bats, but 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, 4 runs scored, a 136 average, and a 177 on base. So right here, numbers are way down. Batting average to on-base ratio is horrible. And then the last week here, he's hitting 083 is Moncada. So right now, he's owned in 74% of fantasy leagues. And if he's another guy that you see on your waiver wire, I wouldn't hesitate to go out there and get him. The only thing here with Moncada that he's going to hurt you in, if you have strikeouts in a points league for negative points or a category league where someone strikes out here. But besides that, he should still have a decent batting average, 250s, 260s, and a good on base, and he'll show some power, 15 to 20 home runs. But besides that here, he's done nothing this season. So the last few games here for Moncada: May 18th at Kansas City, 0 for 5. May 19th at Kansas City, 1 for 5 with a run. May 21st at the Yankees, 0 for 1. May 22nd in a doubleheader, which really hurt him, 1 for 10 in that. That's definitely going to hurt, and that's definitely fluky, 1 for 10. Then May 24th versus Boston, 0 for 4. And May 25th versus Boston, 0 for 4. So right here, he's in a crazy bad slump here, is Yoan Moncada. His last 20 is Moncada, so he's too good of a hitter. This guy, he's not going to lose it in a year here, and it's only a small sample size with 60 at-bats. So right now, you could get him dirt cheap as Moncada. And like I mentioned, he might even be on some of your waiver wires out there. And in 10 and 12 team leagues, I would pick him up. So that's a few hitters I look to buy here for Week 7 of the fantasy baseball season.